What up? I'm Jake Palumbo, and this is season 2, quarantine edition of How to Be Rich When You're Not Famous.
I'm Jake Palumbo. I'm a scrub from Tennessee who moved to New York City 12 years ago with about as much chance of making it in the music industry as a farmer has trying to grow corn in Afghanistan. I'm just like you. I had no money, no connects in the music industry. The difference between me and my peers who were trying to break in at the same time is I didn't quit like a little bit. Instead, I set out to decode the codes and to build my little dirt empire one brick at a time. Since the front door to the music industry was locked, I decided I was gonna find a way to break in through the back window. In 2020, I'm still not famous, but I am happy to report for the last decade I've survived off just my career as a producer, engineer, and artist. I'd like to share with you some of the things I've learned, as well as my core philosophies, as well as have an outlet to vent so I don't strangle somebody to death. I'm Jake Palumbo, and this is How to Be Rich When You're Not Famous.
I don't know where to start. What a year. We started January with World War III on the horizon, and you know, it's the first week of May, and we're now up to murder hornets. Obviously, COVID-19 and all the resulting and related fallout has wreaked havoc on every aspect of life as we know it, from our health and safety to the future of our economy to most people's good sense going completely out the window. Everyone, specifically in the music industry, has been affected by this in some manner, from the top of the top to the bottom, from the 99% to the 1% to the richest, the richest and most successful on down to the struggling people on the come up, Now, full disclosure, back in February, I had taped an entire second season of How to Be Rich When You're Not Famous, and, was in the process of editing that and putting that together, trying to go more in depth and more in detail, as well as targeted to answer a lot of your questions that had came in via email. But as time went on and, pandemonium progressed, it just seemed a little weird to drop videos like, for example, a video about the mistakes you might be making when you're contacting venues trying to get shows. It seems a little weird to put that type of video out and, point out these errors and how to do it correctly when nobody can get shows for an indefinite amount of time, and we don't even know really what live shows are going to be like once things are reopened. So much of the culture that is built around live shows has to do with close camaraderie. When you're watching a concert, people are grouped in tightly together and they're all rocking out together, and they're interacting with one another, and in rock and metal music you've got the mosh dancing, and that may not be not only permissible when shows are able to reopen if they're going to enforce a social distance. Is there going to be a cap on how many people can come, even if they say, it's a free-for-all and do as you always have? Are people going to want to it's just a black hole of uncertainty right now. So, with that said, I just feel like some of those episodes may still come out in the future when that information becomes a little more presently relevant. But for now, you almost just have to drop back and punt. So we're starting from scratch. Season 2 of How to Be Rich When You're Not Famous is going to be the quarantine edition. And this is for the true survivalists. This is for the people like myself and others who are in too deep at this point, and it's almost too late to start another career. So we have to figure out how to make it work, or this might be for the person who has been grinding it out for years and years and is just not ready to give up yet. So, this is for the survivalists. Season 2, How to Be Rich When You're Not Famous, quarantine edition. And we're going to talk about how to basically thrive in an apocalypse and how to make the best of an incredibly shitty situation. One of my favorite movies of all time is Full Metal Jacket. And, there's that scene where they're in the war room, the conference room, and the guy says, You know, it's a big shit sandwich and we're all gonna have to take a bite. And that's pretty much the situation right now. So since we are stuck with having to devour a shit sandwich, we have to try to make the best of it, all right? So before we get into any of these survival tactics, I wanna just talk for a few about how my business has been affected during COVID-19, how we've tried to stay afloat, and you know, what to do with the downtime. Now, we've talked on this show in the past about how my income is a mixture of a lot of different things. You know, for starters, I sell hourly studio time, you know, for people to come in and record, mix, master, whatever they need to do. I do outside mixing and mastering projects for artists all over the world, you know, who record wherever they record, send their files in, I mix and master them and send them back. In addition to that, you know, I'm an artist. I sell music. You know, I have music available on streaming and retail services. I'm a producer. I sell beats both to artists I know and have a rapport with, as well as online on my BeatStars page. You know, I'm very heavy on making sure your publishing and sound exchange and, you know, all your administrative stuff is taken care of so that you can maximize the earning potential of your music. And I have a catalog of records that's, you know, over 50 deep at this point, as far as full-length albums that I've, you know, produced or released. You know, so even though none of those records specifically were a hit, the sum of all parts add up over time, okay? Doing feature verses and performing live shows. Let's start with the most obvious, the live show. Like, you know, everybody in the world's shows got canceled. The concert industry is on indefinite hold right now. And it was bad timing because, you know, I had just signed on with a new booking agency. You know, I had shows booked in New York. I had shows booked out of state in New Hampshire and Maine and a couple places. And, you know, they were weeks away. And, you know, as time is creeping up, you start thinking like, oh, well, maybe we'll be able to pull it off, and you know, then the venue releases a statement, and so, you know, I lost a little bit of income there with those shows getting canceled. You know, normally I have at least 40 hours a week of hourly sessions on top of whatever mixing work I've got to do, on top of whatever production and artist work I got to do. And then you still have to find time to be a human being and family member. So, you know, the hourly sessions took a little bit of a hit, but, you know, for a couple reasons. A, because in some cases, you know, people are laid off. You know, they don't have the normal income that they have. In other cases, you know, maybe people have concerns or reservations about coming to the studio building. Now, my building itself has placed restrictions on how many people can congregate. You know, so most of the in the studio work I have been doing during this time has been one-on-one, you know, me and the artist. It's not been any crews or, you know, packed sessions like that because we can't. And I'm fine with that. That's if I must, you know, come to work during this time, then, you know, I'd much rather it be one-on-one. We just had to take extra precautions, like, you know, I'm leaving time in between sessions to Lysol everything and sanitize and clean the pop filter in between artists and, you know, things of that nature. We can't run as grueling a schedule as we normally do. I've been fortunate in a little bit of feature work has come in. I've done a few features, and one of them was for kind of a corporate gig. I mean, it was a hip-hop song with a lot of legends on it, but, you know, it was sponsored by a corporation, and, you know, they had a nice budget for it. So, you know, I was able to pay some bills with my 16s, much appreciated. So I have gotten an increase, actually, in artists who are quarantined at home, and they've got a microphone and they got Pro Tools or Logic or, you know, some software they can record with. And, you know, having all that time on their hands are inspired to, you know, to want to record. And I've had a bunch of artists who, you know, in lieu of being able to make it to the studio, have just laid their vocals at home and sent them to me, and I mix and master them and send them back, and then, you know, we exchange PayPal information, and all is well. So, I am happy to see that a lot of artists, have not slept on the downtime, so that's helped out as well also, being that, obviously an ideal situation is to be able to come into the studio and let an engineer handle the work, but, if that can't happen for whatever reason, it's good to know that an artist can still, lay usable vocals at home if you have a good, a decent mic and an acoustic space that doesn't have too much reflection in it. We've been able to get past not being able to get in the lab together in a lot of those cases. One of my philosophies in life that has kept me from drowning myself in the tub is to try to find the blessing in the bullshit. Because once the bullshit has occurred, what's done is done, and there's really nothing you can do to undo whatever bullshit has just occurred. So you have to try to find the silver lining in that. The silver lining that I'm trying to find is that my complaint for the past decade, as I have waded through self-employment and trying to stay afloat in the music industry, I've spent so much time complaining about my constant workload, which is a blessing in and of itself. Let's not get that fucked up. But I've spent so much time complaining that my work has taken up so much of my time, I never had adequate, ample time to dedicate to all my creative endeavors that I wanted to achieve. Well, motherfucker, you have time now, and it's ticking and it's non-recoupable, and you had best make use of it, because chances are when the world does fully open back up, which I am confident it will do at some point, even if things are never quite the same again, you're never going to get this time back. So with that said, you had best put that time to use. Now, unfortunately, I've not been that inspired to rap during this time, but I have made a lot of beats. I have made a lot of beats. I released an instrumental album that I made in about 7 days called Transient Ischemic Attack. I appreciate everybody that's been streaming that. But even beyond that, I've in the last 4 weeks, I've probably churned out, another 40 or 50 new joints. And, those are all things that I can put for sale on my BeatStars page, or I can pitch them to artists that I'm doing a project with, or, I can stack them up for my own projects. But, the time spent creating those pieces, I liken that to bagging up work. That's what I'm basically doing, in the downtime, as I'm being creative, and let's be clear, enjoying myself, because by far making beats is my happy place and my most favorite part of doing this music stuff. But I say that to say, putting that time to use that I've always complained about not having enough of, I'm bagging up work so that I'll be ready when the block opens back up, for lack of a better term. In addition, I've been talking about making a sound library for producers for a long time, and I'm actually about to drop my first one next week. By the time this video airs, it will probably be out. It's called Stem Cell Research Volume 1, but I'd been wanting to make a sound kit for a long time. I never had the time to dedicate to it because I was always busy with other work. Guess what? You got time now, so I'm taking advantage of the blessing of having time to dedicate to things I really enjoy doing, but B, I'm gonna put that sound kit on sale on the internet for $19.99. People are still gonna pirate it, but I'm bagging up work to put it on the internet to bring some money in, to hopefully recoup the income that I would have missed, having working a normal schedule, if everything wasn't locked down. Now, I don't know about industry-wide. I don't have those figures in front of me right now, but me personally, streaming numbers for my catalog have went up during this time. As far as, monthly streams and things like that, and I released a new instrumental project a few weeks ago, and it's still a little early to get the full numbers in on it yet, but I noticed I had a much better first week than I did on my last solo album. And this is just an album of beats, you know what I mean? So maybe the fact that people have more time on their hands, I think they have to do something to pass the time, and they're generally going to do that, watching Netflix or streaming music or listening to podcasts. One of the silver linings you got to find is like, this is a really good time to be dropping content, because your audience is more free to consume it. I've been self-employed now for almost 12 years. And having been self-employed in the music industry for 12 years, this rocky uncertainty that is clearly new for a lot of people is regular operating procedure for us. Like, you know what I'm saying? Even when you're doing well in the music industry, there's always a degree of uncertainty as to where the next job is coming from, who's going to be the next person to hire you, are they still going to care about you 3 years from now? Fill in the blank, fill in the blank, So in a way, I'm kind of almost glad that, that decade of learning how to survive when, everything is a crapshoot, I feel like it prepared me for this moment. And I say that to say in that, I've not felt like that much different. I've been personally more worried about my clients' personal finances than my own. Like, in the last few years, I have learned to, at all times, try to have, 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved up, to buffer you during the rough times. Anyway, I say all that to say that when you expect and prepare for disaster, you will make a softer landing than people who don't. All right. So over this next series of episodes, we're going to be getting into, the ingenuity that it's going to require to weather the storm and, come out on top when this is all over. And, even though I think human beings are predominantly stupid and a malady on society, human beings are very resilient, and we're gonna bounce back from this. Anyway, we will be back next week with another episode of How to Be Rich When You're Not Famous. Feel free to leave a comment as long as it's not stupid. Be sure and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next week.